Hi kids! Welcome back to Shannon and Charlotte's Playground. So today I'm back with one more new fun game with Daniel Tiger. Yes, Daniel Tiger is going to do a dress-up challenge and we have to help. We will dress him up and say what type of dress he will wear for each profession. So let's start. So neighbor, today we are trying the dress up challenge. So we will play the dress up game and you can dress me up as in any of these dresses you want. You know kids, dress up as people who are the most familiar to them, like their moms, dads, or community helpers like doctors and firemen, or in silly or fancy costume dress up encourages children. So did you know that we kids like to dress up which are familiar to us, like what we see in front of us in daily life, like we see our mom, dad, or the community helpers like the doctors and the firemen, or a silly or fancy costume. Dress up play encourages kids to pretend and imagine. And dressing up builds social skills as children think about what other people do or feel. So let's start.
What do you like to pretend to be?
Be a doctor, the superhero, the doctor costume. Oh,
That's funny.
that's super funny.
You dressed up as he is a girl.
Terrific choice, neighbor.
Terrific, Daniel Tiger. You look awesome.
What do you like to pretend to be?
What do you like to pretend to be, Shannon?
Fairy.
Now it's time to dress up Prince Royal. And here we have
You can make me look even more royal.
Don't make me like girl. Then after he's gonna be angry.
Really good choice.
That's so funny. Even he looks like a princess. If you do this.
It's fun to play dress up together.
No. You're too much.
Now it's time to dress up Miss Selina.
I
Here
liked
we go.
imagining how to play dress up.
I like being a boy or a girl or boy. That's bad.
Now it's time to dress up. Who is it? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay, so first we're going to...
It's fun playing dress up together.
What's your name?
It's so fun playing dress up together. Isn't it so fun playing dress up together, Shani?
Many.
There we go. I hope, kids, you had a very nice time playing the dress up game, and see you in our next video. If you haven't subscribed our channel yet, don't forget to subscribe and like. See you.